taken a decision on the Pleasure Armour site until members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel have been provided with copies of the relevant Pinsent and Mason legal advice and given sufficient time to study this advice. B, members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel are given the opportunity to meet with the authors of the Pinsent Mason legal advice to ask any questions about this advice. C, members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel are provided with copies of the officer's report and recommendations regarding the Pleasure Armour negotiations before this report and its recommendations are discussed and actioned by Cabinet. D, Overview and Scrutiny Panel holds an extraordinary meeting to consider the Pinsent Mason legal advice and the officer report and recommendations. OSP then decides what recommendations it wishes to make to Cabinet. That's obviously going to completely throw the suggested timescale that's in the report. I don't know how long it'll take to do this, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, maybe a bit longer. But because this subject is so important to the community and to the council, I think we've got to be seen to be having that time to look at some extremely complex issues, some extremely complex legal and officer advice, and then we can do our job as an Overview and Scrutiny Panel and make some informed decisions and recommendations to Cabinet on the basis of the information that we've seen. What I'm suggesting is what scrutiny should do. We're asking for pre-decision scrutiny, and we can see the documents, we can go through them, we can argue and discuss amongst ourselves, sometimes in closed session, sometimes in open session, and then we can come up with a series of recommendations that hopefully we'll all agree to about where this process goes, and then Cabinet will have the benefit of our wisdom to work on.
Have you written that down? Yeah. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Second, Councillor Wells. Right, can I just ask the legal officer just to... do you want to do the amendment? I think it might be useful for it to be commented on. All right, okay, yeah?
I'm just not sure, I might have missed it, but earlier Councillor Driver also talked about wanting to see the valuation and have the opportunity to question the authors of that, and I think that would be a useful addendum.
Councillor Driver, are you happy to add that in?
Absolutely happy to accept that.
Councillor Wells, are you happy to accept? Right. So, can I ask your comments from the legal perspective?
Chairman, yes, I'll be brief. I mean, members do have a right to look at background documents, and they do have a right to inspect things. And obviously, there's an understanding, I think, generally within the chamber tonight that if they do so and they want to discuss these things, those are matters that can't take place in public. And there's an acknowledgement of that. The only comment I would really make on that, it's a matter for members to vote on the motion as put forward and accepted and amended, provided we can get it all written out in script so we understand it. Is that I'm not so sure that it's going to be appropriate to bring Pinsent Masons here to answer questions. That's my only comment, because I think the advice they've provided is advice that's in written form. It's perfectly able to be read and understood. We're happy to answer questions around it, but
Scrutiny.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just add, I think that same would apply to the valuer.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, I know it's always difficult to work out timings and so on, but I mean, I wonder whether, in the interests of making sure that the public don't feel that they're being excluded, that somehow or another, maybe, the private session of overview scrutiny could take place earlier, so that there could be an open session where we could talk about, if you like, the general thrust of that previous debate without actually giving away any of those secrets.
Yeah.
Thank you, that sounds quite reasonable. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Just sort of housekeeping rules here. I mean, there is a proposal been put and it's been seconded and amended, which I think has been accepted by the proposer. the housekeeping rules as to how we're going to actually have the meetings, that seems to be not appropriate to be discussed at the moment. I think there's a proposal and a seconder on the floor. Perhaps we ought to go to the vote or debate or deal with that issue and then see where we go with that issue and then discuss and resolve the other issues that are late after that's taken place.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell, absolutely agreed. Do we want to debate? We just sort of clarified the motion, but do you want to discuss the motion any further, members? Yes, Councillor Wallis.
That's another question. 1.5 in our report, page 1, it says Cabinet will sit in an extraordinary meeting on the 16th of October. Is there any reason that it has to be an extraordinary meeting on that date? Is there any reason why that couldn't be pushed back? Is there a thing in place why it has to be so early? Because what we would like is that to be moved back to have more discussion. Is there any reason why that date has been set? I just wanted to ask first before we, made any recommendations on moving it.
That's not a decision for me to take on my own. There is an extraordinary cabinet meeting that evening in any event, so it doesn't need an answer tonight, I don't think. But I'll take on board what you say.
Thank you. In that case, I'd like to move the motion. Councillor Driver, could you maybe...
Chairman, through you, could I just ask Councillor Rice, is this included Councillor Bayford's amendment? Councillor Bayford, can I ask you to just confirm your amendment?
Well, my amendment was that the panel should have sight of the valuation papers and the opportunity to question the authors of that valuation. Yeah, I mean, as Councillor Walsh said, it mirrors the Pinsent Mason paragraph. So you could say Pinsent Mason and Stratton Park, if that's what it is. Or Freshwater.
Okay, I'm going to read out the proposal on the table. The Cabinet delays taking a decision on the Pleasure Armour negotiations until A. Members of Overview and Scrutiny Panel have been provided with copies of the relevant Pinsent Mason legal advice and given sufficient time to study this advice. B. Members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel are given the opportunity to meet with the authors of the Pinsent Mason legal advice to ask any questions about the advice. C. Members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel are provided with copies of the officers' report and recommendations regarding the Pleasure Armour development before this report and recommendations are discussed and actioned by Cabinet. D. Overview and Scrutiny Panel holds an extraordinary meeting to consider the Pinsent Mason legal advice and the officer report and recommendations. Overview and Scrutiny Panel then decides what recommendation it wishes to make to Cabinet. And E. That the panel should have sight of the valuation papers and have the opportunity to question the author. Right. What's he refers to? Well, it's in there and...
Sorry, Chairman, just housekeeping again. Councillor Driver, can you just clarify what paragraph C is meant to refer to?
I am going in front of me now.
Members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel are provided with copies of the officer's report
Yes.
and recommendations regarding the development.
Yeah, it refers to the officer's recommendations and report on the outcome of the mediation and the development. Paragraph 1.5 here. Because presumably what's in there is going to be a mediation before going to Cabinet. I'm asking you to see that as a pre-decision scrutiny.
Right, we think we've got it. Okay, members, can I then put it to the vote? All those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? So that's carried. Are there any other questions that members want to ask this evening? If not, I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you very much, members.
Mm. Mm. Hmm? Ian, was he starting on you? Was he starting on you? He's a... Was he offering you up? He was trying to wind you up. Yeah. Yeah. He's trying to wind him up. I did. That's unbelievable.
Long time coming. Well, the cabinet, they want to just move on, they want to be shot. Are you sure?
Oh, God.
Why else would that?
I don't know, but it seems driven over.
Yeah. No, you're right, because otherwise all based on hearsay and their interpretation of it.
So go and see Paul, so he didn't have a lot of input in this. See Paul, so he didn't have a lot of input.
Yeah. Everyone needs to see.
No, I am absolutely agree.
It's based on hearsay or
But I think
Chinese whispers.
I think legal advice
People don't get obviously.
no, they want to see it.
No, they need to see it because they've got to make an informed decision.
If that was a language here, this was a rubber stamping duty.
Well, because it was, no, but it was proposed in second.
Well, look at Labour. Labour totally against discussing it. 2 abstentions.
Because they just want to move it on. Disappointing me. Campbell.
Huxley.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's got to be the first time, right?
Yeah, is it?
But yeah, good. Quite right. Quite right what they should. And shame on people that put their hands on.
Do you know what they forgot? Do you know what they didn't put in there? What's happening on the 15th, 16th of October?
I don't know.
Extraordinary cabinet.
Oh,
Then you
they
didn't bloody read
Yeah, I
it.
did read it. I do know what's on there.
They're going to inspect the cliff face.
Yes.
You need to know the results of that before. But you didn't. And we're not allowed to say it.
I can see.
Do you know what's happening on the 16th of October? The extraordinary meeting? Do you know what that's all about?
No.
Bats.
Ah, yes.
Would we have got in the room? No. Thank you.
Yeah, in my pad.
I can still ask about it.
No, you need the cliff face. Because
Yeah, no, I just need paper.
All right.
I'm out. Run out.
Winnie Bunny, you guys.
John Warren, I didn't understand.
Oh, you see, you got that?
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck it was about.
Was he up in your house? You said to
Yeah,
you
he was,
outside.
yeah, he was.
And that's before anything even was said.
He was just trying to wind him up so he's...
No, it's because he was filming him. He already had the other back.
What, Campbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was like that, so I just said, come on, outside.
Yeah, you were outside.
Runs a bit.
He's a bully.
Well, you know where your local councillor's is lying now in Ramsgate.
There you go. And John Warrow was saying that didn't understand what you were talking about.
Yeah.
They all need to know.
That's why he's abstained.
Come on, get it. Mucking about.
Coming in.
Oh,
I ain't leaving you there by yourself.
online.
Does Ian know that for a
Yes,
start?
he does, yeah.
That,
I'm leaving him with...
And Cardi's are not developers, they are. But she's right when she was saying, Cardi's are not going to buy SFP until there is a new agreement. So in effect, the council are making a new agreement with SFP.
Yeah.
And then Barry's saying, yeah, but then it won't be signed until after Cardi's have bought it.
And
But
until you
then-
see the rules and until you see what the legal advice is, we don't really know.
I
But
wrote
they
the word
shouldn't.
snookered at that point down.
But they shouldn't be making a new agreement with SFP.
Well, my view is they should be taking the bloody land back.
Yeah.
They should be taking the land back.
I'm still recording because everybody's input is vital. The points are taken.
That report was a mistake, but we're going to push it through and have it all over within 2 weeks.
And they were all
Ian,
Ramsgate
what do you think about
councillors.
this meeting? How did it go?
I think it went really well, Candy. We've got a delay so we can actually see the legal advice and talk about it, and the valuation and
Well, you
talk
can.
about it. And actually what was going to happen here tonight was we were going to be rubber stamping something without seeing all the original advice.
So we've put a hold to that then?
Yep, we've put a hold on it. Sadly, all the Labour councillors who were there, and most of them, in fact all of them I think, were Ramsgate Labour councillors, voted, either abstained or voted against having more time to look at the advice and make an informed decision.
Yeah.
It's shameful.
Yeah.
It just shows that it's political expediency and that they're just not thinking about the people of Ramsgate.
Right.
It's disgusting.
It is. Do you think we've got a good chance?
Once we've seen the legal advice, I think so. Well, I mean, we've got a choice, and the officers were trying to cover that choice. Everybody was trying to cover that choice. We can carry on with the default action and get rid of them and take them to court and get the land back.
No matter how long it takes, it's been long enough. So
12 years, I don't mind waiting another 2 years or 3 years to
Yeah,
get the land back.
it's nothing.
years
It's no time
Yeah.
at all, is it?
We need that land back.
Thank you very much, love.
Thank you.
Once